In Heartland Season 17, Episode 9, Tim struggles to adjust to new family dynamics when Miranda arrives early to assist with Shane and Chloe's wedding. Amy and Nathan retrain Nathan's horse. Jessica has to mend a gap with Jack. Amy and Nathan first met during a ride to work on Shannon. With the intention of using Powder, a stunning white horse that he had lately had retrained, he was putting him to the test. Amy and Nathan were riding side by side when everything was going well. However, as they were slowing down, Powder became agitated and bolted. After Amy just about caught up, Powder calmed down, and she was able to turn him around. Amy suspected that the reasons for Powder's seeming unwellness could be related to the techniques Nathan's trainer employed to rehabilitate the horse after it had been left in a field for several years. Amy decided that Powder would benefit from her softer touch rather than the hard traditional methods the other trainer had employed, so she offered to assist Nathan with Powder. Nathan arrived at Heartland later that day, accepting Amy's offer, and the two got to work. Given that Nathan owns the horse and is an experienced rider, Amy even persuaded him to assist her. Amy changed Powder's bit and practiced one-rein stops to get back to the basics. Powder was making good, if modest, progress. After that, Amy persuaded Nathan to collaborate with Powder so that the horse would know he can rely on Nathan. And even though Chloe and her infatuation with this stunning horse caused Nathan to agree to let her ride Powder at her wedding to Shane, and even though he struggled to train Powder at the slow pace Amy desired, Powder was ready to go by the end of the show. Nathan even put the horse's fast reactions to the test, and in the end, he and Amy took Powder for a ride in the field. Powder was unrelated to the ride, even if Amy and Nathan didn't end on the best of terms. Additionally, we witnessed some advancements in Nathan and Amy's friendship, which, regrettably, did not conclude the episode on a positive note. We saw more of them in this episode, along with some entertaining back and forth between Amy and Nathan. Nathan led Amy to a stunning location with a view of the surrounding area. Amy was even persuaded to climb a tree by him since he said the view was greater from up there. So they marched forward, reached their destination, and took in the even more breathtaking panorama that the elevated viewpoint provided. And they started talking while they took in the scenery. They began by discussing how climbing trees takes them back to their joyful, worry-free childhood. Nathan then questioned Amy about why she was always with Lindy after Amy said that Lindy occasionally helped her see the world through a child's perspective. Naturally, Amy had to clarify that Ty had died a few years prior. After Amy mentioned how encouraging it was to see Shane and Chloe's optimism for the future, Nathan made fun of her and called her a hopeless romantic. Amy observed the initials NP and TWE carved into the tree they had just climbed, when they had succeeded in climbing down and laughing off after. Nathan fell silent when she asked if that was his high school sweetheart. Amy told him it was none of her business in an attempt to diffuse the tension, but it didn't seem to have the desired effect. Amy asked Nathan if everything was well, and he was thoughtful on their journey back from the tree, so it was a nice surprise when he did choose to explain the initials before they parted. The way the talk ended was less than pleasant. To put it mildly, Nathan doesn't have the greatest perspective on love, and that makes sense considering what his ex-wife endured for him. His suggestion, though, that Amy and Ty's relationship ended in sadness was inappropriate and extremely upsetting. It's not like Amy and T intended to break up. In fact, before religion had other ideas, they were doing better than ever. Not nearly, but at least Nathan appeared uncomfortable and apologized for how that came out. Amy appeared to be deeply affected by Nathan's remarks since, at the conclusion of the show, she was standing at the swing Ty had made for her and appeared a little lost. Nathan appears to be attempting to rebuild his relationship with Amy based on the synopsis of the upcoming episode. The real question, though, is whether Amy will want to keep their friendship going after everything Nathan revealed. I have no idea how this will turn out. I have a feeling that this will either make Nathan and Amy's relationship more romantic, or it will make them return to being neighbors rather than friends. The struggle for survival of Jack and Tim's beef business has been evident since the start of the season. They had to first bargain with Nathan Price over the grazing land, and then there was the competition that threatened Heartland beef. And Tim and Jack had to contend with more than just the Price family beef rivalry. Additionally, Crown Shoppers was a rival to Garland Foods, the network of supermarkets that only carried Heartland beef. As we learned in the previous episode, Garland Foods was struggling to find a way to boost sales in order to offset the loss of customers they were suffering as a result of the allure of Crown Shoppers' low prices. Selling canned items bearing the Heartland beef brand was one of their ideas. But Jack, Tim, and Lou, The three members of the Heartland beef team who joined the family business at the end of episode 8 didn't think that was a smart idea. Since it was so inconsistent with Heartland beef's brand, they were forced to confront Fred Garland in this episode and inform him that the canned stew idea was not acceptable. Naturally, Fred recognized their perspective, but he also appeared somewhat preoccupied to fully pay attention to what Lou and Jack were saying during their initial encounter, while Tim was away assisting Shane with his wedding preparations. At least, though, he consented to another meeting where Lou would make recommendations for increasing sales without endangering the Heartland beef brand. So Lou got to work and came up with some really great ideas, like how to educate people about the health benefits and environmental benefits of Heartland beef's ranching process, as well as a Heartland cookbook that would be sold at Garland Foods stores and feature recipes using Heartland beef meat. But when Tim questioned Fred about their exclusivity agreement, which calls for Heartland beef to remain the only beef offered in Garland Foods stores, after the pitch was ended and Fred had finished praising Lou for her compelling pitch, it became strange. And without telling Lou, Jack, and Tim that Heartland beef had a future with Garland Foods, Fred ultimately found himself practically racing out of the living room of the ranch house as quickly as he could. Lou, Tim, and Jack observed that Fred was acting strangely. However, their initial reaction was that Nathan Price had to take the blame because he had to have made Fred an irresistible offer. However, Jack began to suspect that there was more going on when he attempted to phone Fred later to question him about what was actually happening, and Fred refused to answer, not even to text him back. Additionally, Jack had a suspicion that Heartland beef's exclusivity agreement might not be the only thing to worry about. But what none of them foresaw was the email Lou received at the conclusion of the episode. To make matters worse, the email, which wasn't even from Fred himself, but rather came from Garland Foods Corporate, said that Heartland beef will no longer be affiliated with Garland Foods in any way, as opposed to merely having its exclusivity contract renewed. The bride and groom arrived first, but they weren't the only ones that arrived early at Heartland. Miranda, Shane's mother, was also present. To say that Tim was taken aback would be an understatement. Tim had no idea that he would be seeing his ex so soon, alone no less, after her husband Paul unexpectedly had to cancel. But Miranda had made the decision to accompany Shane and Chloe to assist with wedding preparations. However, Tim didn't have much time to think about it, because Shane asked his father if he could help him build a gazebo for the wedding as soon as he and Chloe were settled. When it came time for Chloe's actual wedding, it seems that she wanted to tie the knot in a gazebo, because she used to play pretend weddings in her backyard with her grandparents. It was the wedding in a few days, but Tim had no choice but to agree. What was strange, though, was Miranda's response to Shane and Chloe's plea. Tim agreed to assist Shane with the gazebo, but then Miranda mentioned something about smooth-talking lawyers at work, which made Chloe appear a little offended and Shane look bewildered. That was Miranda's first clue that she might not be present to assist the kids with their wedding. And it was subsequently demonstrated when Miranda confided in Tim that she believed Shane was seriously mishandling the situation. Tim was erecting the gazebo when Miranda approached him and informed him that Shane and Chloe were planning to relocate to London. Since Shane hadn't revealed this to his father yet, Miranda filled him in on how Chloe had received a job offer from a major London company, and that Shane and Chloe were packing up their belongings and flying across the Atlantic following their wedding and honeymoon. Tim was surprised by it, and clearly didn't want to be that far away from his son, but he was prepared to respect their choice to relocate if that was what they desired. But Miranda was not amused by Tim's casual attitude toward it. Since Shane will have to resign his current career and get a new one in England when they relocate, she was genuinely concerned that he is sacrificing his happiness for Chloe. Eventually, she persuaded a very reticent Tim to ask Shane about it by making an appeal to his guilt about having abandoned Shane all those years earlier. He did, however, ask Shane about the relocation after being persuaded by Miranda, and Shane was not pleased. Tim insisted that he and Miranda did not want Shane to give up his future, even after Shane tried to reassure his father that it was a fantastic chance and that he was looking forward to their new journey. Furthermore, Shane disliked it much more upon learning that Tim and Miranda were conspiring behind his back, so it was evident that what he had said was incorrect. As the call came to a close, Tim instructed Shane to ask Lou about her and Peter's vacation in Dubai before he left for the Fred Garland meeting. Furthermore, it didn't help that Shane heard his mother telling Tim that they occasionally needed to show their child tough love, particularly if they believed the child was making a serious error. Lou told her brother that Chloe and Peter won't have a terrible time in London, even though she acknowledged that it wasn't the ideal moment for them. They are, after all, a distinct pair in quite different situations. Lou further encouraged Shane to pursue his dreams, if that is what he and Chloe want, because, who knows, maybe London may be the trip of a lifetime. Shane appeared to settle down after that, and at the conclusion of the episode, he defied his parents' attempts to get him to regret moving to London. Additionally, Shane encouraged Tim and Miranda to get over their judgment of the decisions he and Chloe are making and move on, as all he wants from his parents is love and trust, not criticism. Jack made a remark about Jessica being a master of the candid shot, and that you never know when her camera might be pointing at you over dinner, following Miranda's compliments regarding Jessica's photography. Jessica suspected that comment was coming from somewhere, but no one knew for sure. When Jessica approached Jack about it after supper, when they were washing the dishes, he replied that he didn't like that she had taken the picture of him at the cemetery. Jessica was initially baffled as to why. She saw it as a lovely illustration of how everyone gets hurt, even tough cowboys, and how mourning is a natural human emotion. However, Jack clarified that the reason he wanted Jessica to remove it was because he thought it was a private moment between him and his late wife, Lindy. Jessica consented after realizing she couldn't make Jack change his mind. That picture had already sold, so it was easier said than done. Jessica was at her wit's end and was hoping Jack would see that she had no other options. However, just as Jessica was going to inform Jack that she couldn't remove the picture because it had already been sold, Jack apologized to her for their brevity the night before and revealed to her that the day of the picture coincided with his anniversary with Lindy. Additionally, Jack told Jessica about his conversation with Lindy that day and how he didn't want to discuss it with anyone else because he thought Lindy might be listening. It felt like an intrusion. He concluded his brief remarks by expressing his gratitude to Jessica for removing the picture. Jessica couldn't even bring herself to tell Jack that she wasn't able to remove the photo since it made her feel even more bad about showing that picture without his consent. Jack didn't appear delighted when Jessica eventually plucked up the confidence to inform him that the picture had sold and that the purchaser had really appreciated it, so she couldn't get it back. Jack praised Jessica for her attempt and said, "How strange is it that some stranger now owns a photo of that moment between Jack and Lindy?" But Jessica vowed not to create any more prints and burn the negative. And it seems that Jack's final remark was what finally spurred Jessica to take all the necessary steps to retrieve the picture. After giving the picture back to Jack, she ended up giving the buyer twice as much money. Naturally, Jack was relieved that he was no longer in the picture with a stranger. More importantly, though, is that he gave Jessica an apology for his behavior over the entire photo incident, and they exchanged hugs as a kind of reconciliation. Lastly, I wanted to discuss the antics of Lou and Katie in this episode. Following their heart-to-heart in the previous episode, it appeared like the mother and daughter's bond was stronger than ever, even if we didn't see a lot of interaction between them in this one. While Katie complimented her mother on the job she was doing for the cattle business, Lou acknowledged Katie's positive attitude and thanked her for trying to ease the discomfort at dinner the night before. However, Lou was reminded of Katie's love of dirt biking when she informed her she was heading out to see Brandon and Ellie perform some incredible jumps on the bike course they had constructed together. Thus, Lou treated her daughter to a brand new dirt bike as a surprise at the end of the episode. And then, with a smile on her face, we watched Katie ride out to meet her pals.